So at this point, we've got InDesign kind of looking like we can put some pictures in, we can put some text in, we've got all that sort of stuff going. We've looked a little bit at master pages, but we really need to start looking at columns and layout work and dividing your page up, because that's the way that you're going to go from a really basic work or something that you could do on Google Docs to something that looks really nice. So essentially, the eye likes to work in lines, and if something doesn't line up, it will instinctively look a little bit weird to us. So if I draw, for example, I don't know, let's make a pink square box, and then I make another box underneath. Okay, let's color this one, I don't know, yellow for the sake of it, or some kind of green. If I put them close together, but just not quite, it doesn't look right. So your eye will sort of instinctively think that something's wrong. And I mean, that was a very obvious example. There's something like this. It's quite subtle. It still doesn't look right. So InDesign has a feature built in called columns. So I'll start a new document up just so I can show it. And you'll see that there's a number of columns that you can put in here. So there's no right or wrong number to use for the amount of columns. I usually like to put in about 5 for a portrait page, just because it gives you some space to move things around. You could have 10, 20. If you got 20, they're going to be really small, because all it does is it divides the page up. The gutter is the space in between the columns. I'm going to leave it at the standard amount here, and you'll see what it does in a second. So what you've got there is an A4 page. You've got your 5 columns with gutters in between. So if I hold Command and semicolon, it switches it off in Illustrator. Hit Command and semicolon again, and it switches on. So what these columns let me do is they let me lock to areas really easily. So if I go like that, it'll kind of lock to it, and it'll also lock to the center point of those columns as well. You can see how there's that extra little purple line coming up when I get to something that's halfway. So if I, for example, put a square there, I can decide to make that into a text box. I can add in a whole bunch of text however I feel like doing it, and I can, do whatever I need to do with that. Once I get to the end of that and it starts to go over, I can then, of course, put a text box in wherever I like. So let's say I put it here. I can choose to make one that is thin, and you'll see what InDesign did right then is it just locked it to a column width. If you put that column of text in, and let's, for the sake of things, continue that as well a few times, and so we've got that to the page now, and you'll see there's an error down here, and if you click on it, it will tell you what it is. It'll say there's text, overset text, and if you double click on it, it'll point on the frame where there's an issue. So that's something to check before you output anything as well. I can put in my other column in there, and I can pull the column over like this, push it down a little bit. Now, if I then hit Command and take the semicolon off, you can see that everything kind of fits a little bit at the moment. It's got those little lines in there, which gives me some space. I could go in as well, and I think you can change view to a overprint preview, and that'll get rid of it. I've got a line on this box for some reason, which I want to get rid of. So I can go into here and I can say none to the line. And then that will show me what it looks like. So I go view, overprint preview, or you can do the shortcut there, and it'll show you exactly what it looks like. Now, if I want to add a picture in, I can go file, place, and just pick my random picture again. So let's do this column. It's obviously a little bit small, so Command and Shift, remember to scale. Now we want to scale onto these points here. If I then add in another one, I can place whatever it is that I choose to put in. And this one's a bit larger, so I can rescale that one down. And it basically just locks everything into place. So if you have everything locked into place, you'll find that your proportions start to look right when you start taking things away. So you can have sort of very complex designs that start to kind of fit and match and have balance. So I'm going to move everything here down a little bit so I can put a title in, but everything kind of starts to match up. You have balance, so I could choose to move this into here, move this down, which will then cause this to work like that. I can move this into here, leave a bit of space in between there, and then maybe one more picture. So let's place a larger image. I don't know, let's do this one. So this one here is obviously much too big, so I'm going to scale that by Command and Shift. By the way, to zoom in and out really quickly, Command plus zooms in, Command minus zooms out if you haven't used that before. So I can move my file around till I get roughly the right shape. And then of course in InDesign, in the last video we did to crop, all you do is click and drag the area in. So I can say, all right, I want that area and I want that area there. I can say, okay, well that's not working for me. I'll scale it up so it fits within those areas, and then I'll continue to crop that in, and I can see the area that I have immediately because I've already got those I've got those columns built in there. So I leave my little spaces in between. I work with my column width, and all of a sudden what I've got here is a really quick, nice newspaper layout. If I then go to my view, overprint preview, it'll get rid of that, and that shows me what I've got. So I might look at this and I might say, okay, it's going a little bit too, there's still a bit of a gap there. So I could go into my paragraph menu, which will be in type and tables, paragraph, and I could, if I find it, I could try and justify my text, which we don't normally like to do, but that's okay for the sake of this. We'll go in here and we'll justify that text, and what that'll do is it'll pull it apart and make it into a full square shape. So if we justify the entire set of text, you'll get that sort of large blocks building in now, and you know that might be something that you want to do for your portfolio. So I could copy all that and just build that in there. I could even, if I wanted to really go for it, I could put another text box in the corner on this. Let's see, I could put another text box in there if I wanted to. I could crop this shape a little bit and make it a bit larger. I could then put a heading in. So we'll use some larger text for that. So we'll go in, double click, we'll size that up to, I don't know, 60 point for whatever works, you know, put that in. So then if we take our overprint preview back off, we can see that the pink line is where I want everything to stop. So we want to then pull this down a little bit to give it some space. The image, we can crop that in, and you start to get kind of a nice look to that. Now, of course, you can simply go to the pages and you can right click and go duplicate spread, and duplicate spread again, and then you've got this format that you can go and delete that text from. You can go and delete the image. Oh, whoops, sorry, I want to go in and click on that first and delete the image. So you double click onto it and you can delete the image, double click again, and then all of a sudden you've got a, what have you got? What's it called? You've got a template. So any text that you put in here now will, when you type, let's delete just a bit of it so I can show how it'll work gradually. Any text that you put in will continue over just like any other page. You can copy that page. You could make a bunch of different pages with the same layout, but you'd have this unified layout. So every time now you double click on this image or you click on it and you go place, you find an image of any sort. So let's use this contour map PDF. It'll go to that size. You could then change it as much as you need. You could even pull it out a little bit if you've got a bigger image. You could crop it a little bit more so it fits more nicely into there, keeping in with that look. You can then take it away, see what it looks like. It's just really a much more freeing way of designing in here. So setting up, it's really just a matter of setting it up with images the first time to see what looks good, then deleting the stuff out of those frames, and then you can just replicate it over multiple pages. I highly recommend it, and in the end, after that first initial bit of work, it's going to be a lot quicker than just doing it manually on docs.